Okay, so welcome back to Unredacted Feather. So glad you are with us. As you must know, the YouTube has taken down our most recent video and removed it from publication. So we are trying to get it corrected to get this information, this news back out to you. Welcome back to Unredacted Feather. We got another exciting episode for you today, and thanks for tuning in. So we have been asked by a number of folks to delve into this arena of John Crook. John Crook, the infamous individual from, he's not from, but now residing, now residing at the Levy County Jail, but previously residing at Otter Creek, in Otter Creek, Florida, here in Levy County. Yeah. I don't have any idea, but my friend is going to ask questions that she thinks that people want to know the answers to, and I'm going to do my best to answer them. So hang on, here we go. Oh, you might be wondering why not a suit. So part of the deal is we're trying to go with less formality and more unredacted. So let's see what happens.
Okay.
I think Seven is trying to get in.
Seven is trying to get in.
I think Seven's trying to get in. So excuse me. Hey, hi, Sevy. Here she is in real life. What's going on? She couldn't stand to be away from us while we were talking about these things.
Yes.
Okay, so I have looked at a few things, and I'll do my best to answer your questions.
Yep. Well, I want to know what happened. What happened to John Crook?
Well, a lot of things have happened, so I did a little bit of digging, and one of the things that happened was a sworn complaint was filed back on March 26th by Sergeant, I believe it's Sergeant. Amazing, wonderful guy from Levy County who's been in law enforcement for a long time, along with his brothers, and just a great group of guys. But Jimmy filed a sworn complaint.
So when did this happen?
This is dated March 26, 2024. And it was for a violation of injunction.
So about 4 months ago?
Filed April 5th with the Levy County Clerk, but it's dated March 26th. So it took it a minute to get filed. It was assigned a case number 2024 MM208. And maybe we can put this up on the screen for the folks to see. But
so this is for the contempt?
This is for the charge was contempt of court, violation of 784.047 Florida statutes, contempt of court. And
does that have anything to do with the protection order that Jeremy has?
That's exactly what it has to do with. So it says that on November 1st, 2023, the victim, and so I said earlier, I think 24, I said 23, it was March of 24. It says, on or about November 1st, 2023, the victim was granted an injunction. And, of course, that was either Jeremy or George.
Do we know it by looking at that sworn complaint that who it is, either George or Jeremy?
It was blacked out. So it was redacted. But it says the victim, blacked out, was granted a civil stalking protection order from Summit County, Ohio, against John Crook. And on February 20th, the victim traveled so it's her. So it's George. The victim traveled from her residence in Otter Creek to Town Hall. And at her arrival, it shows the defendant, Crook, and co-defendant Preston in front of Town Hall. The victim pulls into the grass immediately, etc., etc. So officers show up. Deputy Nick Duncan arrived at the call after 7 p.m. in conversation with the defendant. Crook acknowledged to Duncan why he was there, explained to Duncan that he and the co-defendant were at Town Hall and had personal business to be there. So, on or about March 21st, Lieutenant Mike Narayan interviewed the defendant John Cook at the sheriff's office. Post Miranda, Cook advised Lieutenant Narayan that he did not see the victim at town hall. And of course, if you've been following this story at all, you've seen video where he did actually know they were there. So anyhow, what's amazing, Elsie, is what happened as a result of this sworn complaint.
Okay, so what is a sworn complaint? Like, is that like an arrest? What is that?
A sworn complaint is a document that's filed by law enforcement that alleges that a crime has occurred and gives a factual basis for that belief. Okay, but it's not an arrest. It's not a formal charging document. What it does is it puts into motion an investigation. So what it leads to is the state attorney's office ultimately has to make decisions on sworn complaints, whether or not charges are warranted. And in this case, and very unusually, following the filing of this sworn complaint with the clerk's office and evidently the state attorney's office on April 5th, 2024, it was brought to the attention of the governor of the great state of Florida.
But before you move on, I have a couple more questions for you.
Go ahead.
So, just to make sure that I understood, in November, he violated his protection order.
No, in November the injunction was entered. The protective order in Ohio was entered in November.
Okay, so in March, he violated it.
That's what this says.
And how long is his protection order for?
I think it's indefinite, the one in Ohio. I'm not certain, actually.
Oh, great.
But so, it was definitely in effect in March.
Okay, so in November, they get this protection order that makes sure that they cannot be in the same place within how many feet is that?
Typically 500 feet.
Okay, so within 500 feet that can come close to each other.
Yeah, right. And so I've had clients who have had injunctions in Florida issued against them, and they say, well, what happens if I'm in the store and they come in?
Right. I think that's what more or less happened here, right?
Basically.
Okay. So what happens?
Well, what I tell my clients is you got to go the other way. The injunction is against you. It's not against the other person, or in this case, a protection order, which is the equivalent in Ohio. And so it's one-way street. So if an injunction, it's one of the reasons that it's so important that we don't get an injunction entered against us, because it can affect our life so dramatically. Not only our right to bear arms, our right to freedom of travel, and even our right to free speech can be curtailed by the entry of an injunction. So they're fairly dramatic, particularly for somebody who needs a firearm for employment purposes or and so forth. So a lot of reasons not to get an injunction or to defend yourself in the event that somebody seeks one. So anyway, they do have an injunction. What other questions?
So in March he violated because he was within 500 feet from George.
It would appear that based upon what this sworn
complaint
says.
So that doesn't mean that charges will be filed because of the sworn complaint. It just means the state attorney has to determine, based on what the officer knows or puts on his report, if it warrants the filing of charges.
Well, and beyond that, they should conduct their own independent investigation to see if the facts support charging the person with a crime.
Okay, so this happens in March. In April, the clerk puts it on the docket. Now what happens?
I don't actually have a copy of that docket in front of me, but what I do have in front of me is an order signed by Governor DeSantis. State of Florida, Office of the Governor, Executive Order 24-130, State Attorney Executive Assignment, where our elected State Attorney, Brian Kramer, who is the State Attorney for the entire 8th Judicial Circuit.
Elected?
He's elected,
okay.
Yes. In fact, he's in a race right now. There's an election. He's part of the big docket, the big ballots in November. So he drew an opponent, pretty unusual, but he has an opponent in the upcoming election. But the point is that Brian Kramer told the governor that he had a conflict of interest in deciding whether to prosecute John Cook's case.
Does that normally happen in these cases?
No, it's very unusual, and I don't know the basis for that conflict or what's behind it. But ultimately, as a result of...
If you were to speculate, what do you think that has... Why is there a conflict?
Well, I'm loath to speculate, but my guess is because of all of the stuff that's been raised with what the Hales, all of the back and forth. There have been conversations. Actually, I've had a conversation with one of the assistant state attorneys to let him know that I believed under Florida law and federal law that they were obligated to enforce or pursue the injunction and give it full faith and credit. I believe they're obligated to do that by law. And so the injunction, I thought, should have been prosecuted for a long time and given full faith and credit in Florida. And I don't think it has been. Well, I know it hasn't been because I've been keeping tabs on this a little bit. So
do you think they were a little biased and that's why they felt that they needed to refer this to the governor?
Well, I don't know, but it's pretty important. And we've talked about this on other episodes, to avoid conflict of interest or any appearance of impropriety. That's so important. Appearance of impropriety.
Yes.
So in this case, I don't know that there was an actual conflict. I doubt that there was, but there's certainly an appearance of impropriety or an appearance of bias. And I think that probably was the basis.
Especially when it has to do with the sheriff's office and the state attorney's office. They want to make sure they remain as clean as possible.
Yes.
Okay. So has he gotten arrested for that contempt?
So no, he wasn't arrested. And so pursuant to this order of the governor, that's dated again, if I didn't say it already, was filed June 18th, which was the same day that it was signed by Governor DeSantis. And so here's what it states. We can put it up for you, but it says, whereas the Honorable Brian S. Kramer, to avoid a conflict of interest or any appearance of impropriety, has voluntarily disqualified himself and requested the executive assignment of another state attorney regarding the investigation and prosecution of this case and all matters related to Lynette Preston and John Cook. So this state attorney has basically said,
any case,
we're not prosecuting these people in Levy County, assign it to someone else. So that kind of leads into the most recent issue and what will happen there.
So does that mean that any case that comes before, that is filed in the 8th Judicial Circuit, that has to do with Jeremy, George, Lynette, or John, will not be prosecuted? In Levy County.
So you would think so based upon this order and its entry. However, I have not seen one in the recent case involving John Cook.
Okay, so what's going on with John Cook now?
Okay, so you heard Elsie ask, what is going on with John Cook now? So that will be the subject of next week's video. We will get it posted at Monday at 7-ish and hope that you will tune in at that time as we begin our look into the next segment of what's going on in this man's life. Until then, be well, God bless you, and those you love.